I live in Chicago, but a few years ago, I stayed in Charleston, South Carolina, for a few months. At the end of my visit, I returned to Chicago by ship. In those days, we used sailing ships for travel. It took about a week for a sailing ship to sail from Charleston to Chicago. Sometimes, when the weather was favorable, the journey took 5 days. If there was little wind and we had to wait for a good tide, the journey took 9 days. There wasn't a fixed schedule for ships to sail. Passengers had to visit a shipping office and ask a clerk where the ships were going. The clerk would then inform the passengers about the ship names and their destinations. Then he wrote down the passengers' names next to the ships they chose. The ship captains would check this list and send messages to the passengers when their ships were ready to depart. A ship was going to sail from Charleston in the middle of March. Its destination was going to be Chicago. I booked a cabin on the ship. Then I waited in a hotel. I wanted to find out the names of the other travelers. The list of passengers' names was kept in the shipping office. So I went to the shipping office and checked the list. There was one name on the list that I knew: Howard Brown. Howard and I studied together at the same university. A few months earlier, I had heard news about Howard Brown. A friend in New York wrote me a letter. Howard had married a beautiful and charming young woman. I wanted to meet Mrs. Brown. I had never seen her. Why were Howard and his wife in Charleston? Howard was an artist. He painted pictures. He also bought and sold paintings. Vintage paintings were worth a lot of money in Chicago. Was that the answer to my question? Maybe Howard had found an expensive painting in Charleston. There were many old families in South Carolina. The families had brought many paintings from Europe. Was Howard taking an old painting to Chicago? I was going to find the answer to both these questions soon. We were traveling together on the same ship. A captain sent a message. His ship was going to sail to Chicago the next day, August 14th. I went to the harbor and boarded his ship. I looked at the list of passengers and their cabins. Howard Brown had booked 3 cabins. He had the 2 cabins opposite mine and the cabin beside mine. He was not traveling alone. He had 3 ladies with him, his wife, and his 2 sisters. The 2 sisters were in a cabin opposite my own cabin. I thought Howard and his wife were going to take the second cabin opposite mine. But who was going to be in the 3rd cabin? I was surprised when I met Mr. and Mrs. Brown at last. Howard looked ill, and he wasn't happy to see me.
My friend, we have so much to talk about. So good to see you. Is this lady your wife?
The lady with Howard was wearing a veil. The thin material covered her face, and I could not see her clearly. But she said,
"Good morning,"
to me politely. She spoke slowly. She had the accent of South Carolina. She did not speak with a Chicago accent. Howard did not speak to me. He took his wife into the cabin opposite mine and shut the door.
Howard has become very rude, but he is an artist. Artists can be selfish. We will talk later. But who is staying in the 3rd cabin? Maybe a servant will stay in the cabin beside me. I thought to myself.
Just then, 4 men brought a box onto the ship. It was a long box, about 6 feet in length. They took the box to Howard Brown's 3rd cabin, the cabin beside mine. They put the box down on the floor while they opened the door. The words, "Brown in Chicago," were written on the top of the box. I watched the 4 men carry the long box into the cabin. Then I heard the men talking. The walls of the cabin were thin, and I could hear their conversation.
"It smells bad, doesn't it?"
said one man.
Yes, what do you think is in it?
Said the other man. The four men left the cabin and closed the door. I wanted to look at the strange box more carefully, but I could not do that. First, I must speak to Howard. I believed there were paintings in the box, but I wanted to see them. What had Howard found in Charleston? Maybe the paintings were very expensive. I saw Howard later in the evening. All the passengers were eating dinner in the dining room. I tried to speak to Howard, but he did not want to talk. He was very rude to me, and he didn't seem hungry. He ate nothing. Was he ill?
Well, we're old friends, but you're behaving like you don't know me,
I said. Howard said nothing. I was angry with him now. I wanted to be rude too.
Are you worried about the things in your box? I have guessed what's inside it, but I won't tell anyone,
I said. I wished that I had not said those words. Suddenly, Howard Brown's face became very pale. His eyes were large and bright. Was he ill, or was he mad? Howard Brown suddenly fell to the floor. He had fainted. The captain and two sailors took Howard to his cabin. I went to my own cabin and tried to sleep, but I could not rest. I heard someone open the door of the cabin beside me. Had Howard gone into the cabin? Had he gone to look at his pictures? I heard the sound of metal on wood. Was Howard opening the box? Perhaps I slept a little then. Perhaps I dreamt. Perhaps I heard the sound of someone crying. Howard stayed in that cabin. He did not come out. Food was taken to him, but he did not eat it.
Those paintings must be very valuable, so much that Howard cannot leave them for a minute, I said to myself.
Then I thought of another reason for my old friend's strange behavior. Mrs. Brown did not stay in her cabin. She came out and talked to other passengers. I saw her in the dining room. I was very surprised. I had been told that Mrs. Brown was beautiful and charming, but she was neither beautiful nor charming. And she was not young. My friend had said that Mrs. Brown was from Chicago, but she spoke with a South Carolina accent. Was this the reason behind my friend's strange behavior? Had Howard made a mistake? Had he married the wrong woman? Was he sad and upset about this? Then something happened, and I forgot Howard Brown's secrets. A few days after we left Charleston, there was a storm. The wind blew, and the waves grew taller and taller. It was a very bad storm. The wind was very strong. It blew all night. The ship moved from one side to another. It almost turned over. The captain could no longer steer the ship, and it went towards the shore. The ship hit some of the giant rocks on the coastline, and it began to sink. Soon the seawater reached into the cabins.
Will quickly leave the ship. Go to the small boats. Do not stop to take anything with you.
The captain shouted to everyone. I ran out of my cabin and saw Mrs. Brown. The sailors helped us get into a rowboat. There were 17 of us in the boat, and the captain was with us. It was daylight, but there were black clouds in the sky. We looked up at the ship. It was now low in the water. The ship was sinking. Soon it was going to be under the sea. Suddenly we saw Howard Brown. We had forgotten him. Howard was pulling the long box toward the side of the ship. He was pulling the box toward our rowboat. He was terribly frightened.
Mr. Brown, get into this boat now. The ship is sinking,
shouted the captain.
I cannot leave my box. I must get into the boat with my box.
Howard replied,
No, we can only take you. You cannot bring your box. quick. Get into the boat. The ship is sinking.
shouted the captain.
I cannot leave my box.
Howard shouted again.
Is your box more important than your life?
I shouted. Howard looked at me. I saw madness in his eyes. He hated me. He hated my question.
Yes, it is.
Howard shouted again. He lifted the box onto the side of the ship. As he pushed it over the side, both Howard and the box fell into the sea straight into the water. Howard and the long box did not come up again.
Move the boat away from the ship,
shouted the captain. We pulled the rowboat away from the sinking ship. In just a few minutes, the ship had sunk beneath the sea. The wind blew our rowboat to the shore. At last, we were safe. A week later, I met the captain again. We talked about the storm and our escape from the sinking ship. We also talked about Howard and the long box.
It was a mistake to bring that box onto the ship. The box brought bad luck to the ship. I didn't want to take the box,
the captain said.
What was inside the box? I asked.
The body of Mr. Brown's dead wife,
the captain replied.
Mr. Brown's wife died suddenly on August 13th. She died in Charleston, one day before we sailed. Mr. Brown had to return to Chicago, and he wanted to take his dead wife's body with him. None of the other captains wanted to carry a dead body on their ships. Some people believe that it is bad luck to keep a dead person on a ship. But Mr. Brown asked me again and again. He became very upset. At last I agreed. He lied to the shipping clerk and the other passengers. He said that there were expensive paintings in the box.
Then who was the Mrs. Brown that I met? I asked him.
She was his servant. Howard loved his beautiful wife very much. Only I knew the truth,
said the captain.